I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Amanda, can we have roll call, please?
Trustee Bear,
Here.
Trustee Bettinger,
Here.
Trustee Johnson,
Say here, Mick. Mick.
Here.
Okay.
Trustee Knudsen,
Here.
Trustee Mack,
Here.
Trustee Pattison,
Here.
Mayor Bachran.
Here. All right, we have a quorum and can continue. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to that effect?
Move that we approve the agenda.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed? Okay, that motion passes. All right, next on the agenda is announcement. I wanted to briefly go over, very briefly go over the COVID things which are all been in our packet. I just wanted to remind everyone that we are still under a local disaster declaration until the end of the year. And we do recommend mask wearing unless you're a child under 2, you have health reasons, or you have no public interaction. We have the authorization to close town offices as needed, and this is mainly done via staff recommendations, and as such, reduce the hours of operation for town hall and enforce the limits of how many people are in the office. And at this point, we have reduced the hours of operation to Monday and Wednesday mornings, Thursday and Tuesday afternoons, and then closed on Fridays. Remote meetings, we're doing that now with the Zoom. And then authorization of town employees to work remotely if things get worse. We are currently at yellow, the level yellow in the county, but we are really trending towards red. And I believe if we were adhering to the standards, we would be at least orange. Now, as things change, we will need to limit interactions. Wear masks, stay home, social distance. Please let us take care of each other and our community and be responsible in that regard. So I wanted to update you quickly on Delta numbers. In the last week, had 12 cases today. We had 33 yesterday and 26 the day before. That means in 3 days, we have racked up in Delta County 71 new cases, not active cases, but new cases. So things are escalating very rapidly. The Delta County dashboard does get updated. I go to the state CDPHE dashboard to get my figures. So please, everyone, let's be careful, let's be safe, and just heads up, because we may be closing town hall and people may be working remotely. We do have that capacity and we may go there as needed. All right. The other thing is, Dave, you have an update on COGCC?
Yes. I don't know how many of you have had a chance to read the update that I gave you, but I've done a short letter, and I didn't really mean pshaw, I meant phase, but I think they're done with the pshas because the Oil and Gas Commission did approve their new rulemaking and their new all the deliberations they've been doing about wildlife. They've included things like geohazards, seismic monitoring, expanded notice, public notice, those types of things. So there's much stronger protection of the environment within the new rules that they have. This is a result of Senate Bill 181. So just since I sent that memo, the Professional Commission, which is now 5 full-time members, just approved that. And that commission is really impressive. You can go to the COGCC website and tap into their commission hearings and follow them on Zoom. And it's really amazing to watch their deliberations. It's a real good example of how public meetings can be conducted well. But anyway, I wanted to let everyone know that those, the rulemaking has been finished, at least that phase of it around the mission. And just give you an update on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. You have done a really good job keeping up with this, and I appreciate it a great deal. And kudos to the Oil and Gas Commission. They have just done a wonderful thing in a relatively short period of time under pretty pressing circumstances. Okay, any other announcements by anyone? All right, seeing none, let's move on to visitors and guests. Is anybody out there who would like to address the board on a matter that is not on the agenda? All right, I see the phone number with 2329 with your hand up. When Corinne lets you talk,
Hello?
could you please identify yourself?
Hello, are you talking to me?
Okay, yeah, Suzanne. Yes?
Okay, yeah, hi, this is Suzanne Watson.
Okay.
It's hard because the phone talks to you while you're talking and, you know, the instructions, so it's hard to listen to two voices. Okay, this is Suzanne Watson, 903 2nd Street, and I've written something up here I wanted to present to the council and maybe put it on record. I didn't think it really fit into any specific place in the agenda, so I figure I hate to start off right off the bat here, but it's probably the most appropriate place as far as I can tell. But I would like to bring to the board's attention the careless work with regards to state statute noticing requirements and your recent budget work sessions. I'm just reading this. Town has held many work sessions over the past several months that didn't include action items. The action in the budget work session held on November 3rd, 2020 was an exception. Water and trash rates were discussed, motions were made, and votes cast to set new rates, yet there was no announcement of the significant topic legally posted to inform the public. The regular business noticed on the agenda, which was a work session agenda, said 2021 budget work session continued. Colorado State Statute Title 24-6-402 meetings states any meeting at which the adoption of any proposed policy, position, rule, regulation, or formal action occurs, or at which a majority or quorum of a body is in attendance, shall be held only after full and timely notice to the public. A local public body shall be deemed to have given full and timely notice if the notice of the meeting is posted in a designated public place not less than 24 hours prior to the holding of the meeting. The posting shall include specific agenda information where possible. Posting the agenda information was entirely possible, yet the town chose to be extremely vague. The agenda needed to state discussion of water, trash, and sewer rate increases. Paonia Code requires a resolution to raise water and trash rates. Those two resolutions were posted as unfinished business on the following regular meeting agenda, November 10th. Was the rate discussion during the November 3rd work session considered the new business? It wasn't posted as such. A statement at the November 10th board meeting alarmed me. The mayor cryptically alluded to talk in the community and a board members who are not in agreement with a board vote. She stated that once the board has voted, they must unite. So if the board voted to increase utility rates in the improperly posted work session, that was the vote that they had to unite behind. At that moment, their minds were to be closed to any public comment that might have occurred before the resolutions were adopted. I understand that a dollar number has to be put in the resolution, but the board must remain open-minded before the resolution is adopted. Otherwise, this is rubber stamping a decision from an improperly posted meeting. Colorado, oops, I keep pushing buttons here on the phone. Colorado State Statute Title 24-6 state 402 states, minutes of any meeting of a local public body at which the adoption of any proposed policy, position, resolution, rule, regulation, or formal action occurs or could occur shall be taken and promptly recorded, and such records shall be open to public inspection. Minutes are considered a form of noticing. I asked the clerk/administrator for the November 3rd work session minutes before the November 10th meeting so I could read what was discussed. I wanted to see any supporting information so I could be informed when commenting on the resolutions. I was told, however, that the turnaround time on minutes was not that quick, and I would have to wait until the November 24th meeting. What good are minutes when they're not available promptly? Weeks later, they are mere historical record. This is not prompt recording. The rate height minutes should have been available for review, correction, and approval before the resolution was voted on. I believe that the formal action that occurred during the budget work session violated Colorado sunshine laws. The specific agenda information was not posted, and the minutes were not promptly recorded and made available to public inspection. I don't believe the board discussion and public comment was adequately considered before the rate increase resolutions were voted on, since the public was excluded from the greater discussion during the work session. Title 24 states that no resolution, rule, regulation, ordinance, or formal action of a local public body shall be valid unless taken or made at a meeting that meets subsection 2, which is the posting requirements of this section. In closing, I would like to acknowledge that our elected officials are average citizens who donate an extraordinary amount of their time to their community. Board members are not expected to be experts at statutes and town ordinances, but they hire professionals who should be. Sometimes it seems easier to interpret state statutes and town ordinances to streamline a process or seemingly make a job easier for town hall. I ask the board to support actions, interpretations, and language that strives for the greatest amount of honest and unambiguous communication with the citizens of Teonia. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. All right, I see there's another hand up. This is phone ending in 4101. When you are unmuted, would you please state who you are?
Let's see. Oh,
Oh.
hello. This is Paige Smith at 215 Delta Avenue, and I just have an administrative question. So I know for many of these meetings, you really, you encourage public comment. So here's my question. So if you receive a public comment via email, which tends to be, probably one of the few ways to write it, do you have a system where those public comments could become part of the public records, for instance, included in the agenda packet? And then do you formally respond to the comments you receive in a public way? So there's kind of a comment response, and here's how we resolve the comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paige. Someone will get back to you with answers to your questions. All
Thank
right,
you.
let's move on. Is there anyone else before we move on? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to staff reports. First is the administrator's report. Corinne?
Just a quick report, and then I do want to try to share a screen. I just wanted to let the board know that we have submitted our first reimbursement request for the Coronavirus Relief Fund grant and our CDOT grant. The next steps for the CDOT grant are the implementation of bench seating and the bicycle rack installation near Town Hall, as well as the installation of the information sign at Pullis Park. Also wanted to make the board aware that we were able to expend the greater portion of the $55,000 that we had anticipated to all 18 businesses that submitted a request for relief through the town grant that we were offering. And the Senior Connections was also able to expend the $10,000 grant funds to individuals in our community to help them offset costs of food, rents, and utilities. So we're really happy to hear that. And I'm going to try to do a screen share because I wanted to make the board aware. I'm excited that we were able to add to our Muni code online. If you go to our Muni code online, let me see if I can do this so I can show you. It's been a minute since we've been on Zoom. Let's see here. I'm going to do a screen share and let's see if it works. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm very excited. If you go to our municipal code online, we have a new addition to the Muni code page. Over here on the left bar, this is where you would go from the home, or you could then search through the chapters. And if you go down to the different links, you'll find that this bottom link right here shows browse additional online documents. This is an addition I went ahead and made. It is an additional cost to our Muni code subscription of $350 a year, but it allows us then to attach Muni docs, which is where we can list budgets. That's what all these are here, are budgets from different years. Resolutions, there's been a lot of question about where you can go to review resolutions. Different policies, we have our public records policy, our town snow priority policy. Miscellaneous documents has our sanitary survey, inspection reports, proclamations, audits. And as we continue to add items, it'll continue to update with different drop-down boxes. I'll open one just to show. So if you go into resolutions and you go 2020, then you can see where resolution 2020-12 was a modification to allow restaurants to encroach into the right-of-way to support businesses. The LDD extension, local disaster designation extension, on and on. And so really excited about this addition. This will be somewhere where we'll be able to put contracts, policies, agreements, and other information so that the community can review it. So again, on your home page, well, for me, it looks like this. I have municipal code and Muni docs, but like it showed on the other screen, you can always go to this little link right here as we continue to add different items and access them that way. So, and that is all I had to report.
Thank you. Any questions for the town administrator? All right. Yes, Michelle.
First, I just want to say thank you. I think that additional feature in Muni code is going to be a fantastic addition to our website, and I appreciate the work that's gone into making that available. And then I just have a few follow-up questions. How many water board applications have we received to date?
I don't have them with me, but I believe 5.
Okay, thank you. And I noticed the packet shortcuts are still not quite working, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Yes.
And on the COVID fund expenses, is there any way we could put out a press release or some kind of
I'm already on that. I have a press release that is in draft form. I'm going to let Corinne take a look at it before it goes out. It should go out tomorrow and be in next
Okay, great.
paper, I hope.
And then we had talked about the joint meeting of trustees and planning commission and talked about holding it early next year. Are we waiting until January to schedule that, or are we going to try to get that scheduled for to make it a January meeting?
I can reach out to the planning commission and see what their timeline, what their availability is, and we can get it scheduled. It, of course, it'll be virtual, but we can do that.
Right. And then the zoning board and the board of appeals, is that still?
We've been working on that, and Bo's actually going to provide an update under the attorney report.
Okay, great. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Corinne from the board? All right. Seeing none. Suzanne, I see you have your hand up. There we go. All right. You're on, Suzanne.
Okay. Hi, Corinne. I'm curious about this Communicode link. I can't view it right now. But how direct will it be if you want to, for instance, find out the resolution for dog tag licenses? Are you going to have to wade through like piles and piles of, is it chronological that you just don't know exactly where it is, or are we going to have links to this section of the code, for the current fee schedules and stuff?
MuniDocs is searchable just like the MuniCode is, so you can use the search bar at the top and it will search all the documents and provide you the links everywhere it's referenced in the code as well as the attached documents.
Okay. I know on the old website the search function didn't really work, so I'm assuming it's working now on the new website?
It's not through the website, it's through municode.com, and the search feature does work.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, let's go on to Public Works. Travis?
Apologies, Travis is still at the water plant working on a computer system. And so he is not able to get in here, that he doesn't have internet at that location quite yet.
Okay, thank you.
I meant to tell you that at the beginning, so apologies.
So police report. Neil?
Hello. So the police departments had a couple of large investigations involving juveniles. Since it's a juvenile investigation, there's not a lot of details I can come up with. Unfortunately, with the larger investigations, they do take a lot of time, even if there's no charges that are going to come out of this. On Friday at about 2:00, we went and installed our mask signs that we had on the incoming parts of town. We installed the new one on Friday. Saturday night, it was vandalized again. Somebody decided that they didn't like what it said, and they went ahead and destroyed the sign within a day. And so basically, we're going to keep on putting them up. We're going to keep on getting them out there. Even if somebody comes up and destroys them, we're going to put them back up. We're hoping that the one on Sam Wade will be up in the next couple of days. And we're hoping that people will stop vandalizing the signs. If you are aware of anybody that's doing it, please get a hold of me. If you see some suspicious behavior over in those areas and need to call it in, you can call Delta County Dispatch at 874-2015 and they can let us know. But basically, it's just somebody doesn't like it and they're deciding that they can go ahead and destroy whatever they would like. So we would like that to stop. And that's all I have.
All right, questions for the chief? Yes, Michelle.
Did we use the COVID funds to purchase cameras to help protect those signs?
The problem with the cameras is they only have a little bit of a range. If they have, say, a trail cam or something along those lines, they only have a certain distance and they'll be seen wherever we put them. So we could potentially get them and they can get stolen or destroyed as well. So we are going to be trying to make a couple of boxes or something later on down the line to hopefully protect some of those. And yes, the idea behind it is to put some sort of a camera or something there where we could potentially see it or catch them on film.
Okay, thanks. A couple other follow-up
sorry.
questions.
Go ahead.
Okay, we talked last meeting about in-car cameras. Are those installed now?
We're still installing them. They take me about, the first one's probably going to take me about 50 hours. And that's pretty much destroying the whole car and then putting it all back together. After the first one, I'll get a pretty good idea of how they go in. So hopefully I can get the other ones in quicker. Because
Okay.
I'm the one that wires them and does them all myself.
Okay, and are we still on hold with animal control?
Yes, ma'am. We haven't touched, haven't found anything out about that. I figure at the beginning of the year when we know what's going on, we'll have more of an idea, I will attempt to sit down with the sheriff and with Hotchkiss Marshall and see if they have any interest and want to go forward also.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, anything from the listeners? Okay, seeing none, let's move on with the attorney report. Bo.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see you in the virtual space, I guess. So I don't have a whole lot to report. We've got a franchise agreement. We've also got a minor subdivision kind of later on the agenda, and the marijuana ordinance. So been working with Corinne on those things. We've also had several conversations with Evo and the Riverbank development, and provided some initial comments back to them based on SGM's engineering review. So we've got meetings scheduled between staff and the developer November 30th, and then kind of depending on that, the determination will be on them whether or not they feel like they're in a good spot to submit an application. And then lastly, as Trustee Pattison indicated, been in discussions with Corinne with respect to what I think would be a good approach in terms of cleanup under the municipal code. We've got a specific section under Chapter 2, which addresses the creation of the Article 8, the creation of the Zoning Board of an Adjustment. And then under the zoning section, there's the ability to appeal strictly zoning decisions to this board. And that's limited in scope based on the statutory authority that's provided to these boards. And so the direction that I've received, and just want to check in briefly with the trustees, but think that there's a consensus that it would be an expansion of this zoning board, and just one board wherein it could be established to hear both zoning and building concerns and or decisions on formal subdivisions. And so that would be the kind of consolidation and the creation of one single board. And with that, I think that to the extent that there's similar direction, we'd look to have a proposed ordinance for you guys in December or January.
All right. Comments from the board about Bo's suggestion on the combined board? Yeah, Michelle.
Dave can go ahead. I saw his hand too, if that's all right.
Well,
Okay.
you go. I saw yours first, but Dave is
Having been appointed prior to coming onto the council to the Board of Adjustment, we never really had any actions. And one thing, you feel kind of out of the loop. So I think the idea of combining it makes a lot of sense.
Michelle.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just want to make sure that we're giving that existing board a heads up and make sure everyone would still want to participate in with the bigger scope on that.
Yeah, I think Corinne can speak to this, but it just hasn't, I mean, it's structurally there, but because it hasn't, it only gets fired up in the, as Dave indicated, it really only gets, or Trustee Knutson, excuse me, it really only gets fired up when there's an appeal brought forth. And so one of the things that I like about kind of cleaning up the code provisions is that we can kind of delineate what that makeup looks like. And then that board, I think that they're a prime candidate for, you know, when we have any sort of joint training sessions. And, you know, one of the suggestions that we received from a member of the public at a previous meeting is, you know, if we have those joint sessions inviting planning commission, you could also have those board members. I would envision or suggest that we have an ex officio member of the planning commission and an ex officio member of the trustees, because one, they're a little bit familiar with the town's meeting process. And then 2, they'd have a little bit of a familiarity with the application itself. But that would be the extent of it. I really want the rest of the makeup to be the public, because as I think the trustees understand with this board, is it's kind of your last and final shot before you would bring any sort of formal appeal. So we want the applicant to that board to feel like it's a de novo, or it's an initial review of the process, and that the decision hasn't been made before they're even, before it.
Right. And Michelle, to your point about the contact, one of the things that we had discussed, Bo and I, was reaching out to the existing members and letting them know what that modification and creation of that joint board would be. And then basically opening that up for them, as well as any new members, to apply and basically start those terms over again. So it's clean and clear, and everybody knows exactly what they're signing up for at that time.
Okay, any other questions from the board for Bo? Yes, Michelle.
Sorry, I just have one more. I noticed we don't have a draft yet from Colorado Code Consulting. And since we've only got a single meeting in December, I'm just a little nervous about what happens if they don't get a draft back to us before that meeting.
That's a really good point. It's my understanding that the primary contact with CCC was out of town, that kind of the tail end of the month, but I will put a direct call in, and we will certainly provide an update in the board packet. Hopefully it's a continuation or a proposed extension modification of the contract. If not, at the staff level, we'll come up with some proposed solutions and present it at the December meeting.
Okay, other questions? All right, seeing none from the board. Suzanne, you have your hand up. Go ahead as soon as you get unmuted.
Hi, this is Suzanne Watson. I want to say, I know we have a Board of Adjustment in our town code, and if you read the definition of the Board of Adjustment, they're there to decide exceptions to the code called variances. We have never used the Board of Adjustment in any recent years to consider our variances. Things always get dumped in front of the Planning Commission. So maybe that's one of the reasons why I think there's some conflicting information there in our code that we need to revisit about what the Board of Adjustment's job is. And it does indeed appear that they are supposed to consider variances to the code. That being said, we've adopted the International Building Codes. And if you go to, for instance, page 8 on the IBC 2003, and this will be very similar in successive codes, you have section 112, Board of Appeals. And so there's an ordinance here establishing the Board of Appeals. And it says, in order to hear and decide appeals of orders, decisions, or determinations made by the building official relative to the application and interpretation of this code, there shall be and is hereby created a Board of Appeals. The Board of Appeals shall be appointed by the governing body and shall hold office at its pleasure. The board shall adopt rules of procedure for conducting its business. The next section is the limitations on the authority. They really are just an advisory board. But then the third section is one I'm concerned with. It's called qualifications. The Board of Appeals shall consist of members who are qualified by experience and training to pass on matters pertaining to building construction and are not employees of the jurisdiction. So I would like to see this Board of Appeals staffed by people who have a knowledge base. It doesn't necessarily say they have to be community members, because you might be a little stretched to find people, enough people in this small town who are qualified to weigh in on the building issues that might come up. And I know with some of our other boards, such as the Planning Commission, I personally don't have a lot of faith in some members because I don't think they have the experience or the knowledge base to be ruling on some of the decisions or the advice that they give. So I really think, I know our Board of Adjustment has some good people on it. Some of the people I think I do are already very qualified with building issues, but I really do think we need to stick to that intent of what we have adopted in the International Building Code. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else want to comment? All right, seeing none. Let's move on to disbursements, treasurer's report. Mr. King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We reviewed payroll and disbursements, and I've continued to work with the town staff on the review of the 2021 budget, and look forward to hearing from the public at our public hearing on their opinions of the budget. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Treasurer King? Okay, seeing none, anything from the public? All right, seeing none, let's move on to disbursements. Yes, Dave.
I'd like to make a motion to approve disbursements of accounts payable in the amount of $138,941.99. Transfer to payroll of $28,092.24. Payroll taxes of $27,095.72. And the payroll direct deposit of $28,092.24.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
Second.
All right. Questions from the board?
I had a question on disbursements. My question on disbursements is the weekender sports for $1,884.98. I see it is for the Ranger repair, but didn't we also spend a similar amount of money on the last meeting for the Ranger repair? And I just wondered why so much money into the Ranger.
I'm afraid we're not going to be able to answer that at this time. That would be a Travis question, and he's at the water plant, unavailable.
Okay, sorry, Bill. Maybe we can.
Okay, I understand that, but perhaps Travis can, when he gets back to the office the next day or so, to perhaps write us a short email to explain, because that's, $3,700 on a Ranger, and wonder what's happened to it. It needs that much money for repair. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bill. Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Anything from the public? Yes, Suzanne. Oh, wait, Bill. 1 second, Suzanne. Dave.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to point out on the cash disbursements that coronavirus relief funds have been dispersed as part of the accounts payable. And we have a number of businesses listed that qualified for that and that we paid out. So when people look at that, I think it's really important to see that this CARES Act money is coming into the community.
Thank you, Dave. All right, Suzanne.
Hi. Doesn't Travis have a phone? I'm participating in the Zoom meeting by phone, and couldn't someone just call him or even just ask him the question? Or is he does have a town supplied phone, doesn't he?
Yes, I could call him, but he's working on a computer system at the plant. So, but no, I didn't ask him to call into the meeting from the plant.
Okay, but I mean, just to even ask him this one specific question, he doesn't even have to stay on the meeting forever. It would be good to hear, and I hate to see it kicked off for another 2 weeks to get an answer to that one.
Well, my only concern is that if he's in the middle of a programming thing, we do not want to stop him. We do not want to interrupt him.
Hold on, give me a minute while I go pull the invoices from last time.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to hang. Thank you.
All right, well, while Cindy does that, let's take Paige's call.
Hi. Hi, this is Paige Smith, and I just have a question about, let's see, it's on page 46 of the packet. It's the pay code transaction report on net pay. I'm wondering for Corinne, Cindy, sorry, and Travis, it looks like that's a full month's pay for that 2-week pay period.
Corinne, isn't this the settlement month for paid time off?
Yes,
I think that's the reason for those higher payouts for the current pay period.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know that. But you know what? A footnote to that effect might help because, you know, when I look back at previous agenda packets, you know, it was kind of a difference that I certainly picked up on. So a little footnote to that effect, or at least if you could make that clear in the meeting minutes so someone else in the future doesn't ask the same question. I think that'd be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Cindy has the invoices here and she'll give you an explanation on the ranger charges.
We can't hear you, Cindy.
The last time that we paid weekender was 11/11, the disbursements from 11/11. And that was for water parts and for chainsaws. We didn't pay anything 10/28, and we didn't pay them in 10/14. So no, we have not spent any money on the Ranger except for this in the last 2 months.
Does that answer your question, Bill?
Well, it's just a lot of money, and I was wondering what it was for. I really didn't need the answer tonight. You know, if Travis could send me a short email that said that this went out or that went out, I would have been very happy with that.
Okay.
That's
All right. What? Okay. All right. Let's move on then. Let's go to regular
We need
business.
approval of the disbursements.
Oh, I'm sorry. Of
We
course.
have a motion by
We
David,
have a motion and a
seconded by Karen.
Thank you. Thank you, Treasurer King. All right. All in favor of the disbursement, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right. Hearing no opposed, that motion passes. All right. Now let's move on to regular business. First item on the agenda is the 2021 budget hearing. All right. We have before us a balanced budget, taking into account all the things that we have been talking about throughout the, 3 months or so that we've been meeting on this. The transmittal letter has been included with the packet. It is also on the website, on the budget through ClearGov. And updated version of the ClearGov docs have been posted on the website, and there were quite a few mistakes that have been corrected, and it now looks a whole lot better. All right. Where do we want to start on this? Dave, go for it.
I'd just like to point out to the public that really what we're dealing with tonight in part of the public hearing is pages 70 through 88 on our packet. I would like to point out that the ClearGov is really in a draft form. We try to make it as accurate as we can, but for tonight's public hearing part, we're really looking at those pages 70 through 88. And I know Cindy made some pretty major corrections to ClearGov. The first time I saw it, there were some things that were really stood out to me that I wondered a lot about. And it's really a work in progress to try and get ClearGov to the point where we can feel pretty confident about it, but it's up to the minute. So what we're talking about tonight, the page 70 through page 88, is a number of, I mean, it felt like 10 sessions, but I don't think it was quite that many. But we had a lot of work sessions about the budget, and this is these are decisions we made over the course of the public meetings to come up with giving staff direction and policy that they've tried to implement to the best that they can in trying to produce a budget document. So it's really a joint effort on the part of the finance committee, the trustees, and the staff in trying to produce this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Well, let's open it up to the staff for questions and comments. Yes, Michelle.
So I have some questions related to the initial summary pages, starting on page 51 and running, I guess, through about page 62. So I'll just start at the beginning with that, if that's all right.
Sure.
Okay. Actually, page 51, I have a question for Corinne about the master plan. I'll send that by email. It's not really relevant to discussing the budget tonight. On page 54, under Tree City USA, it specifies that there's a $2 contribution per capita. I'm wondering where that comes from, and is it reserved specifically for tree projects or for parks in general?
Fee we paid to Tree City USA.
It's a requirement from, go ahead.
I was gonna answer the part as far as it has to directly be attributed to trees. So it could be the removal of trees, the planting of trees, maintenance of trees.
And the revenue toward that, is that coming out of property taxes, sales tax?
Cindy, I know it comes from a couple different places. Do you want to?
Give me just a second. So it comes from Parks, Conservation Trust, Administration. So under administration, we have the dues and subscriptions for Arbor Day. Under Parks, we have tree trimming and stuff like that, and planting of trees, and then we've also used in the past, we've used funds from Conservation Trust for tree trimming. And then also under capital, we have monies that sometimes go to tree trimming.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. My next one is on page 55, or I'm sorry, page 58, the section on town hall upgrades. I thought we talked about in the work sessions, possibly removing the kitchen work from that to reduce the overall town hall upgrade expense for 2021.
I do not see that on page 58, Michelle.
Sorry, let me double check.
Oh, okay, building code, including building code update at 22,540. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, and I don't remember, if we changed that figure or not. Did we?
Not that I remember, but and not that and that's for that's what it doesn't, the actual projects are not designated yet. That we just have 22,540 going toward assigned to town hall and building code updates. So those projects haven't been determined yet as to what, that's just, the kitchen was one of the things that we had discussed to use the money for. We understand that that's not your particular preference to use that money for that. So there's many, many other projects and needs in this building. But none of those projects have been slated or determined. We just have that much money that we can use for projects you determine for next year.
Okay, so the projects would come back before the board to make specific decisions.
Correct.
Depending on the amount and versus the, according to the purchase policy.
Yeah, so if it's less than $5,000, they can do it without board approval. Yes, Tammy.
So it's possible this money could be spent, all of this money could be spent, we would never even be asked about it. Is that correct? It would never come
Probably.
before the.
No, okay, so let me rewind for a moment and let you know, you see every single transaction that ever goes through our financials. You see it during disbursements, you see it during budget, you see it during audit, you see it many times. So to say that you are not going to see something is an inaccurate statement. You will see, you see every dollar that is ever spent.
Yes, Tammy.
So let me rephrase that then. It's possible that every project that money gets spent on would not come before the board per the purchase policy, but we would see it after it was spent. Is that correct? I'm just looking for clarification. I'm not. Okay.
So is that could be an accurate statement, but I would say would be incredibly unlikely that would occur. There are things that we've done, of course, that you find out after the fact, such as, if we have to have a plumber come in and do any kind of work in the restrooms or things like that. And, if they need to do something and replace a commode or something like that, that we may not have had that specific thing budgeted, so it needed to come out of capital money that was budgeted for town hall. You may hear about that after the fact through disbursements, but typically any kind of town hall upgrade or project that the town did, similar to the replacement of our front doors when we put in the handicap accessible buttons, the board would be very aware of it, and that would be a conversation. It may not rise to the level of requiring board approval, but the board would know it was happening.
Okay. Yes. Let's go back and see if Michelle is finished. Did you finish everything you needed to do, Michelle?
No, I've got a couple more if I can.
Sorry.
That's all right. My next question is on page 62. There's a section on the page that talks about projects not completed from 2020 and not carried forward. And one of those is water company agreements. That's just not something I remember discussing in the budget sessions. And I'm wondering if you can clarify what that means.
There had been conversation about updating the memorandums of understanding or intergovernmental agreements, or the different contracts that the town has with a water company on with different regulations. A few of our water companies actually have agreements, and then there's a multitude of water companies that there are no agreements. And there had been conversation a few years ago about tasking the town attorney to contact and update all of those agreements. But when the water conversation, when we had shifted conversations and started discussion about the creation of a advisory water committee, and also some talk and discussion about the potential of regionalization of the water, which would mean absorbing some of the water companies, that task was tabled. And so that isn't a specific line item that carried forward. I see it coming back, but not necessarily in 2021.
Michelle?
That makes sense. Thank you.
Anything
And
else?
I think that's all I have for the summary. I'm just checking the pages. Yeah, that's all I have for the summary section. So I'll stop there.
Okay, Bill.
Just as a general comment on capital expenditures, as I recall, anything over $5,000 must come back to the council for approval. As was in the budget discussions, things such as $2,000 for the lawnmower don't necessarily rise to board action. But if at greater levels of expense, it does rise to board action. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Anyone else? Questions, comments? All right, seeing none, I'm going to open it up to the public. Suzanne? Yeah, let me take a quick poll. How many people out there would like to comment on this? Okay, I see 3 hands up. I'm not gonna put a time limit on it at this point. However, if it starts going beyond like 8 or 9 minutes, I will cut you off and let the next person speak just for time. Yes, Michelle?
Sorry, Mary. I do have a few more questions on the budget itself, but
I'm sorry.
I don't want to dominate the conversation. I just want to make sure that this is the appropriate
Well,
time to go
board
ahead.
gets to ask questions first, and then we go to the people in the audience. So yes, this is your chance. Please do.
Okay, so page 73, parks, repairs and maintenance has gone up a lot. I just don't remember from our discussions what that includes. And I'm wondering if we can just go through the major projects, not every little detail, but the major projects that are involved in that increase.
Just a minute, please. You said parks, repairs and maintenance?
Yes, parks, repairs and maintenance on page 73 of the packet, which is page 4 of the budget.
So that includes tree replacement. It includes sprinklers for Pullis Park. It includes peony bed rehabbing. It includes $5,000 for Ellen Hansen Smith Center. It includes baseball field rehab. It includes grass improvement. It includes finishing the park at Apple Valley, and it includes hill stabilization required by SURSA in Apple Valley.
Doesn't it also include the curbing at Lee's Park, which SURSA requires as well, and the fencing?
That's in a different section.
Okay.
That's
Thank
under capital improvement.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
So then on page 77, which is page 8 of the budget, what are our major projects in the street capital line?
That's the reconstruction, 2 blocks of reconstructing 3rd Street. And part of that money will come from here, and some of it will come from capital.
Sorry, part of it coming from capital and part of it coming from what?
From the street improvement, capital improvement fund.
Okay, so street capital and regular capital.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then on page 85 for sewer, and I actually already emailed Corinne about this today, but I just wanted to share with the board. I got pretty confused seeing the depreciation line in the budget, which is a new thing. And I understand from Corinne that that's related to the change in our reserves year over year, but I'm hoping we can have some kind of maybe some kind of training related to that, or at least links to good training resources to better understand what's going on there.
Yes, I will talk to Treasurer King at some point and see if he would be willing to perhaps do a training for us on some of this stuff, since he has so many years of experience dealing with this kind of stuff, but he has to be willing. So we'll see. But I think some training is in order for sure. All right, anything else, Michelle?
No, thank
All
you.
right. I saw another hand. Who had a hand? Somebody else have a hand? No. All right, so then we will go to the audience. Please try and keep your remarks under 7 minutes, please. All right, Suzanne.
Hi, can you hear me? Am I still tuned in?
Nope, you're still fine.
Okay. Wow, I was on the whole time. Okay, I wanted to go back to the budget discussion, and let me see. I think it was page 52, and I've noticed this in past years, but it never seems to get corrected, and I think it's inaccurate. And it's the page 52 Town Building Code. And it says, in 2016, a building inspector was hired to handle building and fire code issues as well as issue building permits. In 2017, revenue for building permits and inspections were significantly more than prior years due to having a building inspector. Well, we've always had a building inspector, so that's not an adequate explanation. I think maybe saying due to fee increases might be a little bit more accurate. And then just a kind of a detail that is a little funny. It says down at the second to the last sentence, in 2019, Colorado Code began the tedious process of updating the building code. I think that's kind of a value judgment. And I might be a more general statement, a more accurate statement might be the town considered adopting the 2018 building code, but the decision has not yet been made final or finalized in 2020 or something. But the tedious process of updating the building code sounds a little funny. So I don't know if you can attend to that. And the only other question I had right off the top here was with the parks, when you talk about tree replacement, what does that entail? Are you talking about just planting new trees, or are you cutting down trees? What's the plan for that?
The current plan that we have is any trees that we remove, we're scheduling to replant with a replacement tree so that we can start offsetting the life cycle of the trees.
Okay, so you're talking about tree removal, correct?
Yes, it could be, when we talk about maintenance of trees, it could be tree removal, tree planting, or tree maintenance such as pruning and different things like that, yes.
Okay, so this is an area that I know there was the comment about the $5,000 you can spend without board approval. And I've seen this happen with some of the tree work around this town. And you hire the same contractor, and they do one tree, and then another tree, and then another tree, and you just send them separate bills, and they're always under $5,000. So there can be a massive amount of money spent on one contractor by kind of parsing things out. And this is an action that I think the board absolutely needs to weigh in on. This is a community issue, and it's community property that we're removing. So I think if we talk about tree removal, it needs to be by a board vote. I also know that the forester said that there was some pretty bad pruning that happened in town parks. So in the past years here. And so I really think it's something that we need the board to consider. It needs to come in front of the board because it comes in front of the public, and there's an opportunity to comment and weigh in on something like that. Thank you.
Okay, Tammy.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't this mostly hinge on the tree survey that we're waiting on?
other than the tree maintenance, as far as tree trimming that continues year after year in the park, which is something that wasn't happening on a regular basis until last year. So part of that is, of course, tree trimming. We finalized Town Park this year. Next year, we have Apple Valley in for tree trimming. But as far as tree removals and things like that, that is heavily weighed by the inventory that's being provided from the State Forest Service. And yes, she did provide information that there were some trees that did not receive good pruning, but they're not trees that have been pruned by the person that the town has been using throughout the majority of 2019 and this year as well.
Okay, thank you. All right. Yes, Tammy.
So the public will be notified. This is something that will come before the board as when we look at that, the tree survey or whatever the name of the document is. Is that correct?
Yes. It's a full inventory and a risk assessment, or what's being done, a tree inventory and a risk assessment. Both will be public documents and will follow the policy established and approved by the board as far as notification to the individual homeowners as well, when and if a determination is made to remove their trees.
Okay, thank you. All right, Thomas, you are up next. Again, please confine your remarks to about 7 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think it'll take that long. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, good. So I sent a spreadsheet out to you guys, or I guess to Corinne, which she forwarded to you today. And I won't be able to share my screen, I don't think. So if somebody can, maybe one of the trustees or Mary or Corinne, whoever can maybe show it after I'm done talking.
I think Corinne
Can
is.
we do it at the same time? That would be great.
Can you do that, Corinne?
Yes, just give me a minute. I've got to go open it in the background and then I can share it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So basically what I did while she pulls it up is just did a chart of the current, or I guess the old now, per gallon rates and the new per gallon rates for water, disregarding the increases, the additional increases in the base rates. I was just looking at basically what my bill would be, you know. And last month was a banner month for us in water use. It's pretty ridiculous, actually. We used 42,000 gallons of water. And the reason that we used that much was we have our giant black cottonwood tree in our backyard here that had some damage to it when we had our sewer line replaced. And so in order to try and heal the tree, I was told by our arborist to water it heavily. So in trying to save this tree and retain the beauty there, we ran 42,000 gallons, which is like more than double, way more than double than even our heaviest uses in summer when we're full. So my bill was $246.62, which is only actually maybe $30 more than it is on a normal month. So I looked at the new bill would have been closer to say $320 roundabout. So okay, yeah, there we go. Awesome, thank you, Corinne. So basically you can see the chart on the left is the water use rates, dollars per 1,000 gallons. And it's a piecewise graph, so it's really like it jumps around a lot. But the crux of it is that your per gallon, everybody's per gallon water rates are gonna at least double. And depending on your use, if you're a low commercial user, it'll be 200 to 700% increase in the per gallon rate. This is going to be really noticeable to everybody in town. I think there are going to be a whole bunch of calls. The really heavy users are going to get it really, really hard. The guys, I remember Western Culture Creamery, the goat cheese place over there on Matthews. during the water outage says they use over 100,000 gallons a month. And so this change represents an additional something like $12,000 a year that those guys are going to have to pay. And I just want to make sure that the board is fully aware that this is what what is happening. And I wonder if when people start making their calls, when the bills go out this month and people start calling into town saying, what in the hell, why is my water bill so high? I'm wondering if staff is going to have the same attitude that they did in the budget sessions where they said, well, this was necessary and this is how it has to be in order because of the requirements of the state and all the projects that we missed and we have to make up this money. So, or if they'll say, well, the board voted for this. And my guess is they'll say they'll push it on you guys. So I don't really have a resolution. I would love it if maybe somebody could take this into account and reduce the base rates or eliminate possibly the duplicate base rates that I've been paying and that a lot of other businesses around town have been paying, because basically if my bill is going to be $250 every month now, I can't see how another $30, you know, you guys are basically, you're squeezing me really hard, and I would like to see some fairness introduced into the system wherever possible. It seems like it's an extremely severe change to the economics of town. And I really don't like it, and I'd like to see it change back. I guess that's it.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. One of the things I would like to point out is that in the process of doing this and discussing this over so long, one of the things that we have been discussing for the past year and ever since the water outage was that conservation of water. And so by increasing the rates the way we have in the new tiered system, part of this was to reduce water usage, which has been a goal. And you have mentioned actually several times as well, Thomas. And so that's why the heavy users are being charged as much as they are, not just for revenues purposes, but also to help conserve water.
Thank you, Mary. And that is true. But my my intent was not to take the existing exorbitant charges and add more charges onto them. I was thinking that what would happen would be a reduction in the base rate and an increase in the per gallon rate so that I could save money rather than being charged extra and then having to somehow try and minimize my use still while being charged more. Like basically receiving less, trying to use less, and being charged more is what you are putting the entire town through with this budget.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Anything else you'd like to say? No, okay. Paige, you're up.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. Paige Smith. And so I looked at the 2019 final budget, and I noticed that the 2020 budget narrative somewhat mimics what was done in 2019, but there's several things in the 2019 budget that I think would be very helpful in the 2020 proposed budget, and that is a table of contents. And the introduction provides on page 4 of the 2019 budget a section called Organization and Staffing, and it shows every employee and how much money they are making. Sometimes the employees are grouped, but it's a very clear look at current salaries. And then the same 2019 budget, if you scroll down a little further, it has several tables that look at each of the salary ranges or each of the individuals. It's called salary levels and benefits. And I'm just going to read the name of the table. The following table shows salaries only without benefits by position. Annual salaries are derived by multiplying hourly wages by 2080, the number of regular hours. And in that table, you see each position, what they make in a year, the total taxes, total benefits, and then what they actually get between salary and benefits. And then it also shows what percentage of what budget goes to their salary, taxes, benefits. It's a really, really instructive table that is not in the 2020 budget. And I highly recommend you add it because it would really go a long way for people to understand what each of the staff people are making right now. And as we all know, this proposal to increase wages is very sensitive right now. And I just want to say in general, I'm against doing flat raises this year in light of not knowing what next year is going to be like, because you may be giving out raises and then you may have to furlough someone. Or, you know, what you're doing is you're obligating to the next year's budget by increasing people's wages. You're also increasing the taxes that go along with them, that FICA, Medicare, that all goes up simultaneously. So again, I would like to urge that if you want to give people that have done exemplary work a financial benefit, do it with a bonus and not as a raise. I just don't think that raises are going to be a good thing right now. And then I would like to go back to the current budget. And on page 59, the water, let me get to 59. Sorry, I'm switching screens. So you're talking about the water increases. And I think it would be really helpful, and it might help get to some of the things that Thomas was talking about, is that this narrative introduction could have so much good information that would explain to people where you're planning to spend money and why you need to raise fees. If this area would say, these are the costs associated with water that we are facing in 2020, and these are the fees we want to raise in order to pay for these things, that would, I think, alleviate a little bit of people's heartburn about these things being raised. But you can't see that in this budget. You know, when you look through all the spreadsheets, it is not clear. And the same goes for trash. And then I also wanted to go to page 62 of the current proposed budget. And let's see, sorry, I'm scrolling there. So in that, it talks about the collection of other projects for 2021. $125,000 to go toward town matching funds. Are these part of why there are having to be increases to the water, the $125,000 and the $25,000?
Yes.
If so, I think it would be so good to actually, in this narrative, make it clear that those are the things that have to be paid for, and that's why the rates are going up, because it is not clear in this at all. There's not a to B to C. It's sort of fragmented between some of this narrative and some of the tables. And then I'd also like to ask on page 62 as well. Let's see, is it 62? It has to do with the bond requirement. Sorry, I need to scroll down more. Could it, because this is a narrative and this is the place where you could educate people like me, what exactly is a bond requirement? And when you say WPA requires water and sewer debt service to be budgeted at 110%, could you please have 110% of what? Is there a number here that's somewhere embedded in those budget spreadsheets that you have to do 110% of? Because again, seeing real dollar figures in this narrative would help the public immensely to understand this upcoming budget. And my last recommendation is, if you could, the 2019 budget did a really nice job of introducing the different spreadsheets and give a narrative at what was in some of those spreadsheets. I highly recommend that you do that again here. And it would even help better if the spreadsheet was actually referenced during some of this in this narrative. So as I'm reading it, I could go, oh, if I go to page 55, I can actually look at the spreadsheet that's being sort of discussed in an underlying way. it would make it so much easier. And I would imagine it would make it easier for all of you to read it as well. So those are my thoughts on the budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paige. I think you've made some really valuable suggestions. And I know it's not complete, and the ClearGov document, I hope will include a lot more, but yeah, we're going to take that under consideration. Thank you, Paige.
Thank
All
you. I
right.
appreciate that.
Any other comments? All right, Suzanne, I'm only going to give you 2 minutes.
Okay, following up on Paige's comment, what I've been noticing is if you make a copy of these sheets, or you're given these sheets in a meeting, a copy of something, there's no information on it telling you where this came from. So I know in former budgets down by the bottom, it would say 2020 budget. And I don't know if that type of information on each page, if that's going to be added to that. So if for some reason a page fell out of order, you knew what it pertained to.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. All right, anything else?
The finance director would like to comment.
Yes, thank you, Cindy.
Okay, I must explain apparently because it's necessary. Okay, so in the past, we didn't have ClearGov. Now you've asked me to use ClearGov. We've got as much information as I could get loaded in a short period of time, loaded into ClearGov. ClearGov is our budget book. I was afraid that it was overwhelming. So I chose to take pieces out of the budget book and put it in for the public's reference. That's what's in the packet. Also in the packet was the link to ClearGov. ClearGov has the majority of the information. No, this does not look like it did in previous years because I only took pieces out of the way I did it in the past to give to the public so that we weren't 100% relying on ClearGov. I was concerned that that it would be difficult to find all of the information in ClearGov with it being new. So I provided a small piece of the information in the packet for hard copies so that people could see the information. The information is the letter, the transmittal letter, the piece of the payroll showing how it's allocated, and the spreadsheets showing the line items and the totals for revenue and expenditures. That's why you didn't get the whole presentation that I normally do, because that's ClearGov. And and most of it's in ClearGov now. There's a lot of things that ClearGov does and that I get to add. That's not all there yet. I'm sorry, but it's a live document. I'm improving it. I'm trying to improve it every day. So that is my explanation why it doesn't look like last year and why you only got a little piece of it and the rest of it is in ClearGov. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm assuming that it will be a much richer fuller document that will actually be the final budget. Am I correct?
I can do it both ways if that's your direction. It
No,
will just be a lot of work, but I am willing to pull ClearGov, all the information out of ClearGov and put it in the way that I did it last year so that you can have it both ways if that's what you request.
I'm not asking you to take it out of ClearGov. What I'm asking is some of this narrative stuff, can it be put into ClearGov?
It is in ClearGov.
So it's just we're not seeing.
All of what's here is also in ClearGov.
And there's
a whole lot more.
Okay, and that's all I'm trying to say is that there is more out there than we have privy to, and that when the budget document is final, it will be a much larger.
Yes, to print out
what we have.
To print out ClearGov in its entirety. Just with this, before I added any additional stuff, Corinne, it was 200 and some pages, 100 and
Yes.
some pages.
Yes. So, and I just don't think we went over that. We may have, it all starts to melt together, I'm going to be honest, but maybe we talked about it when we were reviewing disbursements prior to the board meeting, when we sent out the packet and we included that links where you could, when you go onto the website and you click on the link that goes to the proposed budget, that is the ClearGov where you can then see any portion or all of the budget book that you want. But when we did a trial run Friday of the budget book to see how many pages, it was 265 pages, and it wasn't done yet because it's giving you all of that detail and then also disseminating it again in the graphs and charts and different functions that some are easier for you to understand or for individuals to understand in different ways. So that was why we made the decision, knowing that it's already been a very long budget process. We thought, oh my gosh, it's going to be incredibly confusing if all we provide to the board and public is a link that says, here you go, here's ClearGov. Good luck. Talk to you Tuesday. So we included specific documents that pulled all of basically summarized all of those extra pages, less the narrative, other than the budget introduction letter in the packet as hard copies. So that's why. But because the budget book in ClearGov is just that, it's clear government, it's every transaction, everything. And so it can become very, it's a lot of information to try to review and for all of us to learn how to utilize in the best way possible while it's still being updated.
Okay, thank you, Corinne and Cindy. Michelle, did you? Yes.
I just want to say, I think ClearGov is fantastic. I think even in its current incomplete state, it looks great. And I think understanding the data is far more intuitive than looking at the spreadsheets. So I appreciate the work that's gone into making it available. And I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I feel like where the confusion might have come in tonight is not ClearGov itself, but having two incomplete pieces, one in the packet and one in ClearGov, both of them clearly not 100% finished and not necessarily knowing where to look for particular pieces of information. I know that's part of the growing pains of getting ClearGov ready, but I just wanted to express that I think we're moving in the right direction with that.
Thank you, Michelle. And I would reiterate that I have paged through ClearGov and I am really impressed with the information that's there and the way that information is presented. And I think it's going to be an invaluable resource. It already is an invaluable resource. All right, any other comment? Yes, Tammy.
In listening to what Paige was saying, I would like also to see a total of the salary levels and benefits for each employee. What's the bottom line? What is each person making, including benefits? Because I remember that being part of it. It would be nice to have it in the budget overview. Just a minute, Cindy. Budget overview, staffing levels, maybe just a table right below that of total packages that everyone is making. I mean, I remember the first time I saw that, I was not in favor of the raises, except for the police department, as I stated in our last budget workshop. But I think it is good for the town to let everyone know who wants to know exactly what the bottom line is for each of these employees. So I don't know if I could make a motion to have that included, or if Cindy would be willing to include it.
Well,
But
let's do
I would
Cindy.
like to see that in something that I don't have to go. Okay.
Okay, well, let's see what Cindy has to say, and then if we need to, we can make a motion. So Cindy?
If you recall at the last meeting, when this came up before, and I passed out the information on each position's salaries.
So Cindy, would it be possible to get in the ClearGov document a table like we had in the last budget that does show everybody's breakdown? Is that a possibility, Cindy?
Hold, please.
Cindy?
I'm discussing it with the treasurer. Please hold.
Oh, sure.
The salary and benefit information is certainly available to the Board of Trustees. There are certain aspects of it that should be proprietary in nature, and the administrator is responsible through the department heads of awarding salaries, wage increases, etc. To do it by individual, I think can present some problems, not only for the individuals, but for the town. I would recommend that the board receive information strictly by groupings, and so that you're not identifying or pointing out to each individual employee what their salary levels, benefits, what benefits they're taking advantage of, etc. That's just my personal opinion, and I think that might be satisfy your needs and give the public the information they need to know what the wage and salary information is for the town. Does that sound satisfactory to you, Ms. Smith?
Go ahead, Dave.
Dave.
I'd just like to point out that any individual public employee's salary is absolutely public information that anyone can access at any time. So I really think that it's fairly academic to sit there and say, well, we want a group or those types of things. I'd like the finance committee to really kind of tackle this and see what we can come up with as a solution that provides transparent information, to provide salary information, and report back to the board on that. So that's one suggestion I'd have, is let us tackle it, not try to be lugubrious during this meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Cindy.
I'd also like to remind all the board members that this has been an ongoing process. We found during the salary survey that our employees were significantly underpaid compared to even much smaller communities. And through that process, we've done many salary surveys, and the agreement or the direction previously was to try and get our employees at a competitive wage. Not only in budgeting, you not only have to budget for the people that are here, you have to budget for replacement. So say I get hit by a truck and you have to replace me. And I'm using me as an example because that's most appropriate. If I get hit by a truck and you have to replace me, you might replace me with somebody of lesser ability for a lower wage. You also might have to replace me with somebody of equal or above my abilities, and you're going to have to pay them a much higher wage. So we're not only budgeting wages for the people that are currently here, you're also budgeting for replacement. I'd also like to remind you that this has been an ongoing process to, and the Finance Committee and the Personnel Committee have done very detailed work in looking up each position and finding a fair wage. Then after you get to the fair wage, you also have to take in consideration the time that somebody has put into their position here. And then I'd like to remind the board that when we had to replace the judge, we had to go from $300 a month to $525, and then it's now being reviewed. I believe it's in there for $800 because that's what was originally requested when she was chosen. So please keep those things in mind when you're talking about salaries and not wanting to do the salary increases. There's been a lot of work put into determining fair wages and trying to get our employees up to that fair wage, and also need to consider the fairness of those employees that have put in a lot of years at this town. So thank you.
And I don't think that's the issue, Cindy. I think we did agree on wages. That is not the problem. What the issue is making those available to the public in the budget document. That is all that is being requested here, is that it is public information in the budget document. That's all.
So the wages are in there.
Not grouped, as individuals.
So it'll be done tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. That's all I asked. Thank you. Any other comments? All right, Suzanne.
I'm sorry, I forgot where we left off. I think I actually pressed *9 when there was that 2-minute silence. I was wondering if I got kicked off. But that being said, I do want to say there has been salary levels and benefits included in past budgets with, there's no names mentioned, but they say manager, clerk, deputy clerk, finance officer. And one issue I did notice with Cindy's chart about wages is, for instance, she said hire date, town administrator, hire date 2013. Well, I know Corinne wasn't hired as town administrator in 2013. That's when she came on as a deputy clerk. So it's a little misleading because it makes it sound like someone's been in a position for many years. And there were some other positions that had the same issue attached to it. They'd risen up in the ranks, and it sounded as if that's where it pertained to the current position. So that's all. That was just a detail. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dave, I saw your hand waving around there. Did you want to say something, or were you fixing something? No, okay. Anyone else? Yes, Cindy.
So the answer to her question is that there is a column that shows number of years at the town, and then there's a second column that shows number of years in the particular position. So and then it also shows on there where you would fall if for those that have been here a long time, where they fall what I called half-life. So if you consider that 8-9 years and you cut that in half, that's 4 years. So the way, where would they have fallen if this had been in place originally? Where would they fall on the salary scale for a half-life? As you can see on there, none of the employees that have been here a long time come anywhere close to where they would have been on the scale. They're not, most of them barely even come in at half-life. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, one more comment, Suzanne, then we're going to move on.
I do want to say that these columns that Cindy's referring to are very poorly labeled, at least the document I saw, and it's very hard to understand, as an average layperson. And then I know we're not talking about salary levels, but I did see that huge spreadsheet, and it's a weird document because it is so huge, and I'm wondering how representative it is of small towns. I did see Rocky Ford has salaries significantly less than ours. They're a town about our size, a little bit larger, and they're an agricultural town too. And I don't know, I'm really curious as to what we were compared against, because if we are being compared to Cedar Edge and Hotchkiss, and we're above those two towns, that's a concern. I think we need to fall right in between the two, because we're smaller than Cedar Edge, but we're larger than Hotchkiss. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We don't need a motion or anything on this, do we, Corinne? We're just going to table it, or we're not going to table it. We're just going to take up the final budget at the next meeting. All right. Thank you, everybody, for taking part in this. All right, moving on. We're moving to Clark and Minor Subdivision. Would you like to summarize this, Corinne? Yeah, Tammy.
Yes. I own the property at 113 Clark Avenue, which is 2 doors away from this subdivision. I will not be taking part in discussion, and I will not be voting on this.
Thank you, Tammy. All right, Corinne.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tammy, I apologize for interrupting. Tammy, how far away from the subdivision are you? You're muted.
Can you
It's
hear
not
me?
allowing, there you go.
Okay, I can't see you guys on screen. I am at 113 Clark. It is the second to the last house before the subdivision on the east side of the street. it will affect me one way or the other. So,
Yeah, no, I just curious. I appreciate it. Thank you.
all right, thank you.
All right, Corinne. Wait, Dave? All right, tell you what, Dave, let's let Corinne do the summary and then you can talk, okay? All right, go Corinne.
Okay, so provided in the packet is a same presentation similar to what you saw when we reviewed the Larksfoot minor subdivision. It shows all of the requirements and how the requirements have been deemed met from the administrative review. Also included a few notes on how the applicant addressed some concerns when this initially was presented to the board as a major subdivision. And I'm not sure based on phone numbers of whether or not we have the applicant, Miss Lynn Mattingly, on the line so that she's able to answer questions as well to the board. But I believe that the summary provided in the packet is pretty clear. And oh, I do believe she is.
I believe I'm here.
You are.
Oh,
Just
there
one,
she
one
is.
moment, Lynn.
Okay.
And so, of course, I would, of course, turn it over to Lynn as well to answer any questions to the board, and I'll answer any questions regarding the information included in the packet.
Okay, all right, Dave, you had your hand up.
I'm here, but I don't know if you can hear me or see me.
We can hear you, Lynn.
Okay.
So I'd just like some advice from Bo, because there are other things that come up from time to time for the council, and we live in a fairly small community. And so I'm just wanting to hear the ethics or when we should be bowing out of decisions. So Tammy's situation, she isn't a owner of a property here. She isn't a part of the development group. She doesn't stand to personally profit from this. She's merely a neighbor. So I'd really like to understand more, and maybe this would be good education for all of us as trustees and public to understand when we should and when we should not recuse ourselves. Thanks.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. And that's kind of why I wanted to have an understanding of what the conflict was. Couple of things. As you guys know, generally I don't provide legal advice in an open meeting. Nevertheless, the other avenue or aspect is that the conflict, if there is one, rests with the trustee, and the burden is on the trustee to make the determination whether or not they feel like they can properly do so. With respect to issues that we're looking at that deal with, say, planning or subdivisions, you were great, Dave, with respect, or Trustee Knutson, with respect to your summation in terms of some off the initial cuff conflicts that present themselves. If she has a financial interest, if she's a direct neighbor, or in the event that it would be her as the applicant, those are certain things. Usually with planning avenue or aspects, we consider the location or proximity to the subject property at issue. Any range from 200 to 500 feet, if you will. And in a small town or in a mountainous town, that can cast a pretty wide limit. Nevertheless, Trustee Meck has made a declaration with respect to her concern bordering that neighborhood, issuing her view that she feels like she cannot be an impartial decision maker with respect to this application. The one thing that I would caution all trustees is that you can't use the mere appearance of a conflict in order to prevent yourself from participating in a discussion and or a subsequent decision, because it's a hard one. Nevertheless, again, that conflict rests with Trustee Meck, and coupled with that is that, that does appear that there would be a neighborhood impact based on her location.
Okay, thank you, Bo. All right, well, does anyone have questions for Lynn? Yes, Nick.
My question is there a sidewalk around the edge of the cul-de-sac? And is there any street lighting for that? I don't see anything where it says it does or doesn't have either one. Just wondering about
Yes,
those.
there is a sidewalk.
Mhm.
The cul-de-sac is 45 feet in radius, 90 feet in diameter. There's a 5-foot sidewalk around the entire perimeter, which is the first line in towards the properties. The second line is another 5-foot that indicates utility easement. So there is a 5-foot. I do not know about lighting. I have not planned lighting. I don't know what town does about lighting and when that's appropriate. But yes, there is a sidewalk around the entire cul-de-sac. There's also a sidewalk in the open space that goes between the cul-de-sac and the upper street, which is Colorado or 050 in the county. It's County Road 050. And there will be a trail with a railing on it that connects those two.
Okay. Any
Good,
other
thank
questions?
you.
Any other questions for Lynn? Yes, Bill.
Has there been any letters of opposition to this revised plan? And
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your question.
the neighborhood, have they supplied concerns to you about this plan?
I had a meeting where I was available to the neighbors a few days ago, and several of them still showed the same concerns, that they felt that there will be traffic. The parking is addressed with the subdivision. The subdivision goes from, when I presented it last year, it was 4 R2 units, which would be as many as 8 if it were built out that way, which it may or may not be. That was limited this time to 6, with only 2 of the R2 units on the cul-de-sac. So at the very most, the cul-de-sac, which about doubles the square area of the pavement from Clark on 2nd up to and including the cul-de-sac, so that will increase pavement. There will not be parking allowed on the cul-de-sac. That's both in the covenants and on the plat. So the new owners will know they will not have allowed parking on the cul-de-sac. They're required to have 3 parking spots per residence built into the design. So the parking is accommodated for. There still would be more traffic down, but it'll be at maximum 4 new homes on a street that already has 6 homes on each side, so 12 homes, with an added safety and benefit of the cul-de-sac for emergency access for fire and ambulance, and also snow removal and trash removal.
Thank you. And a correct question for Corinne. How does the town require us, the applicant, to perform under the sidewalks and the paving of the cul-de-sacs, things like that?
Can you clarify your question, Bill? I'm sorry. You're a little hard to hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. How does the town go about guaranteeing that the sidewalks and the cul-de-sac and stuff are built according to town code?
They provide the as-built that they have in well, they're required to have building permits. So there'd be the permitting process and inspection during the permitting process. And then upon the final completion of the project, they provide the as-built, which provide all the information on the standards and specifications to show that they meet the code. And that is when the town then accepts it. And typically it's then 12 months after receipt of the as-built that the town takes over responsibility for repair and maintenance of the street and sidewalk.
So the town does not have a way to guarantee it. We only get the as-built after things are done.
Well, and through the inspection process as it's being done. There are inspection requirements that the materials are inspected as it goes in. And it is included in all of our documentation and the plans that all of the plans provided meet the code. And I see Bo raising his hand.
Yeah, well, I mean, just to follow up on that, there would be, you know, when it's all approved, there would be a dedication, and the town would only accept the dedication of that, you know, when it was up to the standard as put forth by town staff.
Michelle, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, my questions are more for staff. Are we just doing it all at once?
Yeah, let's just
Okay.
ask all the questions.
So I wanted to check in on the water moratorium and how this could possibly impact this project, because I may have misunderstood in our GAPS meeting, but I thought the water moratorium prohibited the extension of lines even for taps that are already owned. Is that inaccurate?
We can't, the town extension of lines, but it was discussed and stated clearly also by the proponents for the moratorium that anyone who already owns a tap absolutely would be able to connect their tap. That's for new taps. It's not for people who own taps that haven't been developed yet. And there's no extension of the town line. It's the line, their line to the new development should someone purchase and build.
Okay, so the town cannot extend town portion of line, but an individual who owns a tap can extend their portion of the line as needed.
They can, well, no, they can connect, a new development can connect a standby tap, but someone that owns a water tap can't extend it to a second home or add additional homes and dwellings to an existing line. That triggers additional taps to the main line. So they wouldn't be able to do that. So implementing a new tap that's been on standby, yes. Extending a tap you already have to additional dwellings and things like that, no.
Okay, I just wanted clarification on the difference on that. Thank you.
You're
And then my other question, I saw that we do have 2 recently installed fire hydrants near the property.
Yes.
I'm just curious when and how were those installed? Was that related to this project or were those previously put in place?
Corinne might be best to speak to that, but they were put in when the water line was put through there, I believe a year and a half or so ago. And there was a fire hydrant placed at the base of what will be the cul-de-sac, and then one up on 050 or Colorado Avenue. So they weren't put in because there's a development there. They were put in when the water line was put in.
Right.
Anything else?
Okay, so that's typical when we're adding new water lines that we also add hydrants associated when we're extending out the lines.
In areas where we're lacking, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, other questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, I see Ashley has her hand up. Go ahead.
Apologies, Mayor, quickly before Ms. Burke speaks, I did want to also state that the town did receive one letter from the majority of the neighbors as well, still expressing some concern with increased traffic. So just for clarification, it did come in after the packet was finalized, so it was not included in the packet, but it has been added to the record.
Okay, Ashley.
Okay, hi there. Thank you, Mayor Mary. And yeah, this is Ashley Creston Ted
Thank
Burke,
you.
and we are would like to just express our support for this project to allow for more housing, affordable housing, and building opportunities inside the town limits of Paonia. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Ashley. Any other comments from the public? Yes, Molly.
Hi, yes. Hello, everyone. I am also in support of the project, and I
Molly,
wanted to.
could you say your name so everybody can hear it?
Oh, sorry. This is Molly Wheelock,
Thank you.
and I wanted to express my support for the project and primarily express that the cul-de-sac is actually less of a traffic impact than a through street. Hands down. And the increase in affordable housing and is a benefit to the town. And I think that Lynn has done a great job of putting together a plan that is respectful of the property, the neighboring properties, and would be an amenity to Paonia.
Okay, thank you, Molly. Anyone else? Yes, CP, would you please state your name?
Hi, it's Christina Patterson. I was wondering what the price point was for these units.
I don't know yet. It's in part cost of the cul-de-sac and the other costs involved, but it's not actually affordable housing, but it will be sort of mid-priced housing and housing that is comparable on the market today. The lots are likely to average around 150,000. That is for an R2 lot. So that can be, have a duplex built on it or 2 residences built on it. And that's an approximation of cost.
Okay, thank you, Christina. Thomas.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
Again, Thomas, please say your name before you begin.
Oh,
Thank you.
sorry, Thomas Markle, 302 2nd Street. I was wondering if Molly was associated with the project professionally.
I not yet, but I have asked that I have an appointment with her to help me through the rest of the process. So.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure if there was any.
I'm not right.
Thanks.
All right, Molly.
Thanks. I just wanted to respond to that, Thomas. And this is Molly Wheelock speaking again. And I have spoken with Lynn about the project. She's introduced me to the project. I'm actually speaking because I was at the meeting for another reason last year when she presented, and I was honestly surprised that it didn't pass, not because of support for or against the project, but because I felt that it met the letter of the town code, and she did a great job of presenting it, and I think it should have passed. And I feel that it was not passed for reasons that may have put the town at risk. And so I think that it is in the town's best interest to look closely at this project and make sure that it meets the requirements. And if it does, then move forward with it.
Right on. Yeah, I just know that was your work. And so I thought maybe you might be involved with it in some fashion.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, both of you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, can we get a motion to approve the Clark's and minor subdivision?
I move that we approve this subdivision.
Can I get a second?
I second it.
Further discussion?
Yeah,
Yes, Bill.
Well, I'm glad to see that it's been redesigned with less units, requirement for the cars. I realize there's going to be an increase in the street traffic down there on a small street. But this is a piece of private land that they have certain rights on there as well. So thank you for bringing it back in a better design.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, Michelle.
I just wanted to echo what Bill said. I really appreciate that the developer was responsive to the comments from the previous iteration of this and brought us a design that I'm personally a lot more comfortable with.
Thank you, Michelle. And I would likewise say I like this configuration much better. I think it's a much better solution to the problem. And thank you for bringing it back, Lynn. All right, we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, hearing none, that passes. Thank you very much for bringing this to us, Lynn. And good luck.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is the Clark Communication Franchise Agreement.
Charter.
So this is back again with a couple of alterations as were requested by the board in the last meeting. So can we get a motion?
I move that we approve the franchise agreement.
And can we get a second?
I'll second.
All right, discussion. All right, seeing none, all in favor?
There is a public access channel provision. I just want to highlight that. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you, Bo. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Was there an opposed? No? What? All right, did everybody vote aye?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous, it carries. Thank you. All right. Sometimes Zooming is not the best. All right, let's move on to ordinance 2020-10, regulation and licensing of marijuana establishments. I would like to make a note here that in order for us to put this into effect January 1st, we need to act on this tonight. So let's see, questions, comments from the board about this piece of legislation? Yes, Michelle.
So I want to clarify something, the way it was worded in the packet. It read that we had already gone through this and had a lot of discussion about this. Based on my recollection and my notes, that really hasn't happened yet. We looked at it and saw that it existed, and that was pretty much it. And we were going to discuss it following the election. So I just want to be clear that that's kind of where we stand on this, that this is our first full discussion of the ordinance.
Exactly.
So one comment I have, and I really appreciate the map that Corinne put together showing what the restrictions as written would look like in the town. That was sent out by email, I believe. I'm not sure if that could be put up on the screen. One thing I'd like to see in addition to that is a restriction on locations of shops in relation to each other, not just from schools and daycares, but also marijuana shops from other marijuana shops. The reason being, the way it looks now, we could have like 12 shops on Grand Avenue. And there are towns, it sounds ridiculous and it seems extremely unlikely, but there are towns, one example, Trinidad, Colorado, where the shops just exploded, and it was great for a minute because it was a lot of revenue for the town, and then it turned out to be not so great over time. And I'd like us to put more protections in place to avoid something like that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Karen.
Can we put a limit on the number of towns? Can we say Paonia only wants 2 stores or whatever?
Yes, Bo.
You can put a cap on the number of licenses. This ordinance does not do that. Ridgeway does have a limitation of 12 licenses, which equates to basically 3 recreational and 3 medical, and then the supporting licenses. I guess we just have recreation and medical as per the ballot question, so you could put a limitation if you were so inclined.
Okay. All right, well.
But it doesn't need to be in this. This is in later regulations.
No. I'm sorry. It would absolutely need to be. It would need to be in this.
So, on that point, would you like to make a motion in that regard?
I move that we limit the number of licenses to 2. Other
Okay,
people might have different ideas, but
okay, can we get a second and then we'll discuss?
I'll second that.
All right, then discussion. All right, Nick,
Now, is that 2 licenses for each, for recreational and medical, or is that 2 licenses, 1 for recreational, 1 for medical?
I meant 2 locations. And they could do both at either or both locations. That's what I
Only
had in
2
mind.
locations,
2 locations, 2 stores in the town.
whether one location sold just recreational, that's up to them.
As far as I'm concerned, yes.
Okay,
But they could do both. I imagine that if someone is going to sell marijuana, they'll have different kinds of products. They might have edibles and they might have, I don't know, salves, and they might have, I don't know, whatever they have. But, or it could be medical salves, or I don't know, whatever they sell. I've not been in a store. I don't know what they sell.
okay, Tammy?
I think that that's a little too restrictive. Yes, you can have medical and recreational together. They are actually 2 separate entities, but they can be in the same building. However, what if we get 2 commercial right away and no medical? I would really not like to see no medical. Having used a marijuana for medical, for pain, was in extreme pain for several years. It's a great medicinal. I would really, really hate to see 2 recreational stores open and no medical. I think that would be the risk we would run. Personally, I would like to see that, with the exception of possibly separating them. I kind of like that idea. Maybe we could discuss that a little further. I'd rather the free market decide. Let the market decide. Crested Butte and Gunnison both let the markets decide, and they had a lot of success. A lot of stores did close, but it all worked out in the end. So personally, I'd rather let the free market decide and not restrict it to just 2. Or if we do restrict it to 2 and 2, or 1 and 1, or some way that ensures that we do get a medicinal store in here. And if we only have 1 medicinal store and only 1 recreational, then where's the competition? That I would hate to see 1 store just have the market on everything and there be no competition. That's my 2 cents worth.
Well, that's good.
Hey, Michelle, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that kind of echoing what Tammy said, and also just giving us a little more flexibility, doing a restriction by distance between stores, in addition to the existing restriction on distance from schools and daycares, would limit the number of shops in our downtown core to ensure that we don't have marijuana shops just like proliferating in the downtown core and taking over. But it would still give us more flexibility in C1 or C2 zones that are maybe out of the downtown core. So maybe you have 1 or 2 shops on Grand Avenue and a shop over by Adesia. And then if we annex another area into C1 and C2, there can be another shop out there eventually without having to change the ordinance. So I feel like it protects us from too much growth too quickly, but it still gives us some flexibility.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, do we have other comments from the board?
I have a question.
Yes, Karen.
I mean, all of these people who want to sell things have to go through the state first and get a state okay for their license before they come to us with their application. Then do we have a choice of who we accept? I mean, if this one only wants to do marijuana medical and this one wants to do recreation, we accept two and we're fine. But I like the spacing by distance idea. But the question is, do we get to choose who we accept? If we get 6 people that the state says are they're okay, and they come to us, do we get to pick and choose?
All right. Right.
So Bo's internet dropped and he's trying to get back in right now. What I can tell you is first, they don't have to go and get state approval before they apply at the town. The function is similar to that of a new liquor license, and those reviews can happen concurrently. Either one would be contingent on the other. So say our process completes before the state process completes, our approval, the board's approval, town approval for a shop to open would be contingent upon receipt of the state license. If the state finished their review before the town did, the state would issue a license, but that license would be contingent upon the review and approval of the local licensing authority, which would be you, the Board of Trustees. As far as if you had 6 applicants that came before you, and you had no regulation in place on a limitation on how many of a certain type of store you were going to allow, I think you'd be hard pressed to just say no to an applicant if they met all the guidelines. There would have to be a reason for you to deny their application. But to go any deeper into that, I would really want Bo to weigh in. And like I said, he's trying to come back in, but he's not here yet.
Okay.
Okay, so then we do need to add something to this ordinance that limits the distance and perhaps the number.
If we want to, or we could amend your motion.
Yeah, my motion was just to limit it to 2.
2.
But it didn't say anything about distance, and I think the distance is really the primary limiter. You know.
Of course, it completely up to the board, but just to make you aware, also in previous years in different conversations, when there was discussion about limitation, one other suggestion or a consideration that was made was not putting a limit on a number, but on the block. That was also another way that they had discussed it, was that you could only have 1 per block. And so it may be that they're both corner locations, but one's on a 100 block, one's on a 200 block, etc. That was, again, just another way that people had discussed limiting them in previous years.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have a couple people in the audience who would like to talk. Jer? Go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Please state your name.
My name is Jer Lowe. Many of you might know this is very much my business. I'm a consultant for the industry. So a few things as to Karen's limitation. That's picking winners and losers. That's not letting the market demand, as Tammy had suggested. I don't disagree with putting a limit, but keep in mind that there is an approval process to go through still. So your limit can be manufactured in that respect. Just keep that in mind. There's a number of things in the code that you may, my understanding is that you came up with this by copying it from a local municipality. I think it was Ridgeway or Uray, as a starting base. Keep in mind, they've been at it for a little while and some things have changed since then. The local licensing authority, being the Board of Trustees, may not be the best way to go about it. You may want to create a Cannabis Licensing Authority or Cannabis Enforcement Division. That's something that you may want to think about doing. As far as the unlawful acts, those are pretty straightforward, pretty standard. The screening, as to the question about licensing local approval versus state approval, you pretty much got to have it signed off by the locals for the state to act on it, even though, as Corinne said, they can do it simultaneously. It really comes down to what the local authority says. The land use and area maps and all that, that's definitely going to be something that you want to deal with that cannabis authority, that cannabis licensing authority or enforcement division. And the town board's definitely going to want to take a look at exactly where they think it's okay for these facilities to be. The distance from schools, all that's pretty standard. There is one thing under D, 6-4-100D. It talks about no mobile facilities and restrictions and no delivery. That has maybe changed in Colorado and may change at the state level, especially with COVID happening. That may be something that you want to strike. Keep in mind that you guys can, now that this has been adopted by the voters, you as a board can go back and modify this pretty much anytime. I know that Bo was like, yeah, no, you got to put 2 stores in there now or not. But a board does have the authority to adjust this ordinance on a one-off basis. For good cause, that kind of goes back to what Corinne was talking about, as far as if you were trying to limit it and you told someone no, but they might be the perfect candidate, that could be problematic. It's also important, everything else is pretty standard. Like a $5,000 annual license is fairly standard, and the rest of the fees and whatnot are fairly standard. But it's also important to understand that if you do that, you may be limiting who can play in your game. And I don't think what the town of Paonia is looking for is a bunch of Acme or Walmarts of cannabis dispensaries coming in from Denver and setting up shop in Paonia. I don't think that serves the town well. I don't think that serves the community well. Just in full disclosure, I have no interest in opening a shop in town, although I do major consulting in the industry, and I have been approached by people that want to consult, that want my consulting for this industry in your town. I really think that it's important that, I know that Mayor Bachran said that if you don't pass this tonight, it won't be ready by the 1st of January. That might be okay. You might want to look at a few more things on this. I also want to just give my expertise to the town as needed. I'm a highly paid consultant in the industry, but I would do this for free or no cost or low cost for the town if you requested me to without issue. I really think it's important that you get it right. The whole reason you did this was for revenue, for potholes, etc. What we've seen in the last almost decade is that there's an extreme amount of revenue where this is concerned. The state has collected about $1 billion in taxes since this started. That's nothing to shake a stick at. That's better than most oil and gas scenarios, etc. So I think it is in your interest to really get this right. And is there any of you that have any questions for me?
I don't see any hands, so I think that's a big no, Jer.
Okay. It also, I know that there was a lot of talk in the papers about, the cultivation aspect of this, and with the county having their hard line, that kind of puts you in a precarious position of supporting other towns' tax bases in order to sell cannabis in your town. You could annex a lot of the 81428 zip code and make tens of millions of dollars doing it. That's something I want to put out there. So there you go. That's all I've got for you at the moment. If you have any questions or if you want to contact me, I'd be happy to help.
Thank you very much, Jer. All right, Dale, you're up. Please introduce yourself. In a minute.
Okay.
All right, you're unmuted, Dale.
Yes. My name is Dale Cecil. I live at 1200 3rd Street, number 4. I too am in the cannabis business, have been for approximately 11 years. And of course, this is I'm very interested in this ordinance. And my first question is tonight a preliminary discussion, or is tonight when final rules are going to be set?
I think that's up to the board to decide.
Okay. Because there are so many things to consider, especially as we talk about medical versus retail, and how they coexist, and whether you have 2 licenses, one of each, or if you have 1 license under 1 roof, or 2 licenses under 1 roof. And those are some of the kinds of things that have to be, I think, decided. I think a lot of towns have given themselves a lot more space than 60 days after the election to really come up with some solid rules, as Jer had mentioned as well. Because if you force yourself into a situation where you have to make decisions that you are then going to have to change or repeal, or somehow modify, it's going to make it more difficult. And then there's the consideration of how many people are going to licenses, or apply for licenses. And as Jer said, if you put a license fee out there, in most towns that I'm aware of, we'll put a non-refundable application fee, and therefore if you don't qualify, you don't get your money back. So that, I think that kind of weeds out some of the weaker players, because anybody coming into the market is going to have to be they're going to have to know what they're doing, or they're going to risk failure. And I mean, somebody else will probably come in and buy the license and start over. But anyway, I've just seen a lot of things in a lot of different towns, and one of the examples that was brought up was Trinidad. Trinidad's a little bit unique in that it's so close to New Mexico and Texas. All you have to do is go to Trinidad on any weekend, and you've never seen so many Suburbans with Texas tags on them in one place at one time, even in all of Texas. So I don't think Paonia runs that risk so much. One of the other things we talk about is licenses. Well, there's several different categories of licenses. There's transportation license, testing licenses, medical, retail, hospitality, cultivation, manufacturing. So when you talk about licenses, each one of those is different, and each one of those requires approval by the state. So again, as he also had mentioned, you could annex some of 81428, because if somebody did want to cultivate, I can't imagine where you would do that in town. I mean, I'm pretty new here, been here a year, but as I look around town, I'm wondering warehouses, greenhouses, outdoor cultivation facilities. Again, a lot of things to consider what the possibilities are for licenses and license classes. And at some point too, I think there's going to be a bit of dilution, because as the surrounding towns open up, it appears that Delta will be a while, but again, Cedar Edge, if Hotchkiss comes up with a license, each one of those, of course, will cut into your total revenue. And one of the other things to consider is that, of course, you can generate a whole lot more tax revenue on retail, and you also have a much larger market for your out-of-state tourists and whatnot. For medical, you have to have a medical card that you've gotten a doctor's recommendation, and you've got to live here to do that. So, and of course, again, medical, it's my understanding that you can only collect whatever your usual and customary sales tax is, which is 7.9% here in Paonia. And then, of course, there's the additional $5 per transaction. But recreationally, the taxes are as high as 25 and 30%. In Denver, we have a store in Aurora, and its total tax rate is 25%. Have a medical store in Colorado Springs, and it pays the 8.25% that the city sales tax is, because that's all that's allowed. So I guess just by touching on a couple things based on my experience in the business, I'm wondering if it's a great idea to try to run through all the potential considerations in one meeting. But most places that I've been involved in as well will have work groups and ongoing discussions and spend some time to really get it dialed in. So that's what I've got.
Thank you, Dale. All right. Yes, Karen.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to withdraw my motion
Okay.
and make a different motion that
Sure.
we table this for tonight and do get a study group to look over these things. We could ask participation of a few local citizens and come up with a new ordinance or an amended ordinance.
Okay, so we have a motion to table this for this evening and put together a study group. Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
All right.
Have you finished with public comments?
We're dealing with this motion first.
Okay.
I think let's let the board weigh in on this motion, and then we'll go ahead and finish taking public comment. So, any discussion from the board? Yes, Dave.
I really like the offer that Jer made to give us free consultation, and I wanted to take advantage of that. I thought that an educational work session, I know we're really excited about work sessions, having gone through the budget process recently, but it seems like a work session on this that's more in depth, where we can ask questions back and forth, and maybe Dale would be willing to participate too, but where we can have members that are more experienced, because I feel like a real novice at this stuff, and it's going to take a lot of study. We only have a budget of $25,000 for income for this year for this, and so it isn't imperative that we act on it right away. But I like the suggestions that people have made that we're more measured and we're more careful about moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, Michelle.
Yeah, Dave pretty much covered it. I don't have anything else to add at this time.
Okay. Yes, Tammy.
I think the more public participation, the better this would be received.
Thank you, Tammy. All right. So being that we have a motion to table, and it is 9:05, and we still have 3 more major agenda items to go through, I'm going to allow 1 minute, but then I encourage everyone to come to the work session and please share at the work session. So Suzanne, you're up.
Okay. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay, I was having a hard time with the phone menu. I just want to say about letting the market decide who's successful. What you have to realize is if you go with that approach and let too many people in, things like restaurants, the thrift stores, whatever, they probably will have lower rents than what people can get for marijuana stores. And you might see people going out of business, and you might see like businesses leaving the town just because financially it's more viable to rent to marijuana businesses, and that would be a dramatic shift. I also want to say this was a vote for the sale, retail sale of marijuana. It's not for the cultivation. It's not for the processing. That's not what the voters voted on. That was a issue in the past that probably made it fail because people didn't want to smell it in their neighborhoods growing. And then one mechanical suggestion. There's an error in this. It talks about the special election held on November 4th, 2014. That's incorrect under the whereas. It was held on November 3rd, and it was a general election, and the year is 2020.
All right, thank you, Suzanne. All right, next, Tom. All right,
Thank you,
you're
Mayor.
unmuted. Please
My name is Tom Scudder,
Thank you.
and I'm actually partnered with Dale Cecil, the gentleman that just spoke before you. I'll keep this very brief because it sounds like you're going down the path that I would have recommended, which is to put a work group together. I've been in on the Colorado Springs City Council Task Force for the last 6 years, doing all nature of rules and regulations in this industry. And I'd love to participate in your local effort as well. Dale and I'd love to open up a shop there. And I'd encourage you to think about putting store limitations on. Colorado Springs did not do that for the first 7 years. And I actually put forth that recommendation a couple years ago. And if you don't do that, one of the things that's going to happen is you're probably going to end up with too many stores. And although the free market is the way to go, I'm a free market guy, I would tell you that cannabis is such a unique industry at this moment that the free market is something that's a little distorted. And so almost all localities in the state of Colorado have had to put some sort of limitation on there to create reasonable rules and regulations. So I'll end there, and thanks for letting me speak, and love to help you down the road if you'd like me to do that.
Great, thank you, Tom. All right, Renee, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Renee Grossman. I own High Q, which operates 4 retail marijuana stores in the Western Slope. We are located in Silt, Parachute, Carbondale, and Snowmass Village. So we have a lot of experience working in smaller rural Western towns in Colorado. I am also have been involved in the municipal process in 5 municipalities, and I'm currently on the working group in Grand Junction as they are formulating their regulations to pass it. So I would also be interested in assisting in any work group, and I would also support that approach. It's a really good thing for buy-in from the rest of the community. It really helps educate people. It'll help educate you from the operator's perspective. It helps educate the operators from the town's perspective and what's really important to your town. Couple quick comments on the setbacks from schools. The map that Corinne just showed, that only showed the schools that are like north of town. And I was wondering about the Vision School and the Wildflower Daycare Center. And I would encourage you to reduce the setbacks from schools to 500 feet so that you have properties that will allow the use. I also would support a cap in a town your size because I operate in Silt.
Thank you. All right, Jer, you're up.
Hey, thanks again. I actually do support somewhat of a cap, just not 2. 8 to 12, I think is reasonable. And it may end up being less than that after approval. With over 30 years experience in this business, I think I can help you guys bring a lot to the table. It's clear to see that there's already people chomping at the bit to get into town. You want to make sure you do it right. I do believe you should table this ordinance for tonight and have some workshops as well as a little bit more expert advice. This is pretty heavy stuff. It's my life's work. There's the ordinance, the requirements by the state change pretty regularly, not as much as they did, say 8 years ago, but they still change pretty regularly. So it's something you have to be pretty up on, and it is definitely worth the board's time to table this and put it.
Okay, thank you, Jer. All right, Thomas.
Hey, I just wanted to remind everybody that, or I guess maybe ask, that there are formula business restrictions in the downtown zone. And so a company that operates I believe the number was 5. I should know, but I don't. Shops in other towns would not be able to operate in the C1 district of town. Thanks.
All right, thank you for that reminder, Thomas. Okay, I don't see any more hands. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, this is tabled. We will figure out a process to set up this workshop and get things moving on that. All right, moving on down, we have the 2020 sanitary survey follow-up. Corinne, would you like to take that, please?
We provided an update in the packet, but the request was made by the Public Works Committee, so I would defer.
Okay, Tammy, Bill? Yes, Tammy.
Okay, we did meet. One of the reasons we want to keep this in the public eye is because water is really the most important service the town provides, and we're very concerned about this as a committee. We met on the 19th. Trustee Bear was unable to be there, but I talked in great depth about the results of the survey with Administrator Ferguson and Public Works Director Loberg, and I do feel like they are taking this very seriously. They spoke in depth about some of the things that they are doing that they have already done preemptively, even before this survey was done. They knew there were going to be some issues, and rather than take a lot of time going over that, I did send a list of the deficiencies, just a summary of the deficiencies, the resolution the state is requiring, and the town's response thus far. I'm happy to share that with anybody. I did send that to Corinne and Mary, and I believe Travis. The town has until February 5th to respond to all of the deficiencies and the violations, and they are already working on that. Some of them have already been completed. Some of the responses are already ready to send. I just want to keep this, and I hope I speak for Trustee Bear too. We want to keep this in the public's minds. We don't want this type of a result to happen again in 3 years. And we want to, I think the citizens really deserve to know that the staff, that the operator, that everybody knows what they're doing. One thing I would like to mention that we didn't discuss in that meeting is that Mr. Loberg has to be certified B certification for water, and I believe C certification for sewer. Corinne could correct me if I'm wrong on that. I'm very concerned that he does not have that certification yet that I know of. We are going to continue to follow this and make sure that he has that certification. It has to be done sometime in March. I believe that certification will change. The plant certification level will change. Plants, I should say. Other than that, as I said, it's just a lot of details, what the violations were, what the town's response is, and what the state requires. So we just want to keep this in the public eye and let the public know that Administrator Ferguson and Loberg are working on it. We are really trying to keep on top of this and keep everybody updated as to where they are on that. And the main thing, and Administrator Ferguson said this at the meeting, and I want to reiterate it, the town has not failed any water tests. The water coming out of the plant, they have assured me, and I do believe that is good water, and I think the citizens can rest assured that the water they're drinking is really good water. That's about all I have, unless Trustee Bear has anything else, or Corinne has anything else.
Bill, do you have anything?
Just a minute, about dropped something, trying to keep everything in the air here, but I couldn't make the meeting. I had a family emergency that I had to take care of, and but I believe that Trustee Mack got her report, and I appreciate her taking the time and the diligence to drill into this. I think she's done a good job. So thank you, Trustee Mack, and I don't have anything else to add. Thank you, Mary.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Trustee Bear said. I appreciate the work that's gone into this to date to get us back on track, both by staff and by Trustee Meck. And I did notice that there were a couple of issues in the deficiencies where they specifically requested that we respond with detailed procedures or operating processes in writing. I'm wondering if those will be presented to the board.
That's through the wizard. It's actually you implement all of your testing and your schedule and your procedures for how you do that, and it actually goes directly into a wizard, which is a like an online template that CDPHE has, so that you're meeting all of those requirements. We'll have to look at it to find out if that wizard. I'm sure there's some way that then can be pulled and made into a downloadable and presentable document. So I'll look into that. And I would also, just to add and expound upon what Trustee Meck was saying, is that Travis is already actively working toward receiving those accreditations that he needs. And we do plan, as was a motion and approved at the last meeting, we will continue on a monthly basis to report out on the agenda at board meetings where we are in the process until all of the deficiencies and violations are cleared.
Yes, sure.
Sorry, just a little bit more. I noticed that we do have requirements for Tier 3 public notice. Do we have a plan in place for how that's going to go out and when?
Yes, we're doing them all as, so the tier notices do have to be approved in their final state by the state before you actually send them out. So of course, there's a little bit of timing with holidays on when they'll be reviewed and when we'll get response. Sometimes response is pretty slow, but it is our plan to get them all in one document and send them all out at once. We just want to clear the field and get all of the notices out, because you will notice if you're looking at those that different notices have different deadlines that you have to send them out by. And we're not going to do that. We're just going to get them all done and out in a mailer so that everyone's aware of everything that's been deficient or a violation or a missed notice, and get it cleared, clear it with the state, and move forward without seeing this repetitive missteps moving forward.
Thank you. I really appreciate that approach. And last question, will our updated SCADA systems help at all with the tracking related to these deficiencies?
It will, and we're already seeing that. Just today, the mayor and I meet weekly on Tuesdays, and I was explaining to her today as well that there's been steps that have already been taken, not just with the SCADA, but also the electronic record keeping, because a lot of our record keeping in multiple areas, not just public works, has been done pen to paper, and different people come in and go out, and documents are considered disposable by one, and then you need them later and they're gone because it was just a piece of paper. Travis has completed a shareable spreadsheet document so that the daily reports are actually being put into a spreadsheet on his iPad. His second, Mitchell, who was learning how to run and is going to be getting certifications for the water and sewer plant as well, has an iPad and has the capability to see those dailies and keep up to date with that, and so do I. So he's already implementing some of those things, but yes, the SCADA system will absolutely help with that.
Thanks very much for that information. And just for your own back burner, I think it might be useful to consider a formal retention policy for each department at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are moving on to 9:21. I think we should have a motion to extend the meeting for another 15 minutes because we still have three more things to get through.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, meeting is extended to 9:45. All right, Suzanne.
I want to say, you can say that we didn't fail any tests, but when you aren't taking the tests, of course you're not going to fail them. And so I think that's kind of brushing it off a little bit, the seriousness of this. I see the chloramine tests weren't being taken, the combined radium, the gross alpha, the lead copper rule, the carbofuran, and that was since 117 all the way to 12/31/2019. So how can you brag about not failing tests if you weren't taking them? And then one other question I have is, who is the new employee? What's his name that you hired? I see in your notes here on the follow-up that you filled an open position for water and sewer employee began early November. And I was just wondering what that employee's name was.
Okay. All right, Corinne?
The employee's name is Mitchell, and I think you're misinterpreting the report. It does not state that tests are not being pulled and performed. It's a failure to report the results. So there are, between the water and the sewer system, and I am having Travis compile all of this data, so it's going to be added in and available for the public and the board to see. On a weekly basis between the water and the sewer plant, there's about 175 different samples that are pulled and tests that are done and provided. And so there are specific deadlines of when you have to then upload the results of those tests and samples, and deadlines of reporting the results have been missed. The testing is being done, the tests are being analyzed, and the results are being given. They just weren't done in the timely manner that they needed to be done. And some of those we modified the schedule of when we take the tests because they were being pulled the third week of the month. And that when you then get your samples and you get them in the cooler on ice and UPS'd, they have to be received and tested at the testing facility within 48 hours. If they're not received within the 48 hours or anything happens once you turn it over to UPS and it's delayed, you have to wait then to get a report back saying that the test couldn't be fulfilled for whatever the reason. And then you have to re-pull samples and resubmit. And again, some of those that go further than Mesa County go via UPS. So what will happen is you get a notification the last week of the month, and naturally you re-pull samples and send them, and you've missed that 28th deadline to upload the report. So the report goes in late with the test results. So we've modified, and now we pull those samples the first week of the month. So we have an entire month's worth of time if there's any issue or misstep when it leaves our facility and goes with UPS to the site. That's one example.
All right, thank you. All right. Thank you very much for the update. I'm glad that we're continuing on this, and I'm sure we will get another one in the future. All right, next up on the agenda is the town attorney contract. Bo has graciously agreed, yes, Sharon? No, this is Bo has graciously agreed to be our attorney again, and he is going to do it for a flat fee of $50,000 a year. So, Karen.
I just have one comment on the termination, section 8, termination. Either party shall be entitled to terminate this agreement upon giving the other party written notice of intent to terminate. There's no time frame. Could be today, or could be 30 days or 90 days. How much notice before termination?
I mean, it would need to be a board action, but as the agreement also says, is that if you provide notice of termination, it's my responsibility to continue to serve until you find a replacement of an attorney.
But what if you want to quit? I mean, you can say, well, I won't be back next week.
I mean, my intent is to have it go year to year. So, I mean, yeah.
Could we have it at least?
I'm happy to have a provision that says I need to provide 30-day notice to terminate. I mean, that's not a problem.
Okay. All right. Any other comments?
I figured you guys would quit me before I quit you. So.
All right. Yes, Tammy.
Do we need a motion to put that in there, or is that just administrative? You can just.
Yeah, that would be good if you could have a motion to amend the agreement to require that the law firm requires 30-day notice to terminate.
Okay. I move that we approve the agreement with the addition of the 30-day notice requirement.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any more discussion? All right. Seeing nothing from the board or the public, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion passes. So let's move on to the town administrator 6-month review. Dave and Karen?
Dave?
I just wanted to go back to this contract. I don't think we approved the contract. I think all we did
Yes.
was approve the motion to
No,
add the
no.
30
No,
days.
it was a approval of the contract with the amendment for the 30 days.
Okay, I didn't understand. That's what I was voting on.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. Would you like to take back your vote, Dave?
Yeah, just make it a nay for now.
Okay. All right. So town administrator 6-month review.
Mayor,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt, but you do have a hand up in the audience.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Paige.
Thank you. This is Paige Smith, and I have a question on the contract. Excuse me. It's on the duties, I believe it was, law firm's responsibilities in subsection B. It says description of law firm's legal services, participate in negotiation regarding town, I'm sorry, it's number 1, provide drafting and a review and approval of contracts, MOUs, IGAs, et cetera. So I'm just curious if et cetera, does that include looking at resolutions coming for the board or ordinance coming before the board? Does Bo normally review those before you look at them?
Yes, he does.
Okay, thank you. I would just like to make a comment that I feel like there are times when Bo is not familiar with the ordinance, the enabling ordinance that might, or town code that may be important to understand within a proposed resolution, et cetera, that might change the content of the resolution. So thank you. That's been my observation.
Okay, thank you. All right. Dave, Karen.
Yes. Oh,
Town
Dave.
administrator 6-month review.
Same song.
Basically,
Go ahead, Dave.
okay. In your packet is the 6-month review. We'd like to see your written responses sent to either Karen or myself by the end of this month.
Okay. So,
You know.
little something to do over Thanksgiving, huh?
Yes. Is that too short a notice for everyone? We're open to, our next meeting's on the 15th. So if that's too tight for people, we're willing to relax our standards.
For another week.
Everybody
Yeah.
okay with that? Looks like it's okay. All right. End of the month. All right. Down to the consent agenda. We have regular minutes for 2 work sessions, and then no, we have regular minutes and special minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Yes, Michelle.
In the minutes for the November 3rd meeting, it says that my letter was included in the packet, and that's not accurate. I don't feel strongly about whether it should or shouldn't be. The statement's just not accurate as written.
I think it needs a clarifying statement that it was included in the permanent packet. So it was provided after the fact and included in the permanent packet. So.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay, Suzanne?
Hi, I just wanted to back up, and when we were talking about the review, you didn't ask the audience we have until the 30th to submit comments too. And I personally would be a little bit more comfortable having time. We've just spent a lot of personal time going over the budget, and Dave Knudsen offered that. And can you consider that for public comment? Does it have to be in by November 30th?
I will continue to take personal comment through the 5th of December.
Okay, so they will be considered even if it's after November 30th, as long as it's before, timely before the next meeting.
Yeah, well,
okay.
and timely before the next meeting so that the Personnel Committee has time to review it.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
All right. So, any further discussion on the consent agenda? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, quickly, the mayor's report. I attended the North Fork Resource Group, which is a group of schools and mental health. Brenda Burns at the Center for Mental Health is compiling a comprehensive list of all the resources available for families and children. So if you have anybody that you feel would benefit from those things, get in touch with Brenda Burns at the Center for Mental Health in Delta. There are cards, her cards are in the lobby of the town hall. And then I am also making core requests daily to the health department for the number of people infected and diagnosed with COVID-19 in the 81428 zip code. We shall see how they reply to that. Okay, and that's my report. All right, finance and personnel.
Nothing to report.
We have a suggestion for the way we do the budget next year. I'll put that in writing rather than taking up time in tonight's meeting. But we'd like to streamline that process and get a little more front-end loading on the information that we're bringing to the board in time for them to review it. So we'll put that in writing. And again, we're going to be signing checks tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Everyone's invited.
All right, government affairs, public safety.
Nothing new to report. Our next meeting is Monday, December 7th at 3 o'clock. Public is welcome. And we haven't decided whether that'll be by Zoom or not. So I guess we'll talk about that and decide, let you know.
Okay, thank you. All right, public works, utilities, facilities.
I believe that our Public Works report has been pretty much discussed in the sanitation survey, unless Trustee Mack has more to add.
Tammy?
Just one thing, we are going to try and set a permanent meeting time. I believe we said the third Tuesday of each month at 9 a.m. I had not mentioned that to Trustee Bear, but for now, tentatively, that is going to be the permanent meeting time for our committee. And I also would like to request that Mr. Loberg present just whatever he was going to talk about tonight, just something really short in writing that we could all read before our next meeting or as soon as possible.
I will ask him for that. And he did provide an update as well that was attached to the packet that we kind of glossed over. So apologies for that.
Now, Cindy, you had a hand up.
Thank you. I did find out on that question about weekender sports about the Ranger, the power steering box went out.
Thank you, Cindy. All right. Tree board.
Nothing new to report. Still waiting on Cammie Long's report to the town.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have anything? Suzanne? Okay.
Sorry to end with a final comment like this, but I guess it kind of pertains to the tree board in a way. It looks like the Stewart ditch is starting to pipe the ditch, and I'm worried about the ground infiltration of water and the potential for a lot of dying trees or brush around town. And I'm wondering if we should start thinking about having a fire plan. If we start getting dead, dead limbs and stuff, the town could be at risk if we have drought and then also this piping that's happening. And it's just looking to the future. I'm saying planning over the next several years about how we might address fire situations in this town. Wildfire. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Can I get him? No, I'm going to adjourn. I think we've covered everything we need to cover, and we still haven't hit 9:45. Thank you, everybody. It is nice to see your shining faces, and we'll see you on December 15th, if not before. Thank you, everybody who took part.
Thank you. Bye-bye.